Well, Matt, welcome back to Disclosure Team. It's been a while since you've been on the show. I've just recently been on your show, which is always a pleasure. So how's things been with you?
Good, Vinny. Thank you for having me back on. I absolutely am a huge fan of your show, and am glad to be back. And as I always say, you were my very first guest on my show, and I remember how nervous I was having, in my view, UAP royalty on the show. So always happy to return the favor in any way, shape, or form that I can. But yeah, no, so things have been good, very, very busy. Of course, I was out in Washington, D.C. for the House UAP hearing. I wasn't there on behalf of the Go to Trouble show, but rather on behalf of the UAP Disclosure Fund, of which I'm the director of strategy. So between that, Seoul, I managed to get a statement entered into the congressional record, which was really great. And yeah, man, a lot's going on. Obviously the hearing, Seoul, but then also you guys have some serious drone activity going on in the UK, which I certainly would love to speak about, because I think it is definitely tied to what has happened here in the US.
Yeah, I agree. I want to touch upon all of those points. Let's work in reverse, though, and let's start with the Seoul conference that you recently attended only, a few days ago or last weekend. So this is their second annual conference. The first one was a great success, and the videos from that one are on their YouTube channel. But, it's very kind of cloak and dagger a little bit during the event, and then we don't really see anything from them for a few months. So if you could kind of give us a bit of an overview of why you attended, what it was all about, the speakers that were there, and the general vibe that you kind of got from meeting a lot of the other attendees, because I feel that that's probably where a lot of the really in-depth and good conversations happen.
Yeah, I was super glad to attend Seoul. I attended Seoul as the Good Trouble show. And really, for me, going to Seoul is more about meeting people, networking, and also finding out what is currently going on behind the scenes, sort of in academia and policy. And I have to say, it was a really great conference. I went there last year. However, I was only able to attend the last day, so I missed out on quite a bit. But it was really great. I think one of the things that I really enjoyed the most is having the opportunity to meet fans of my show, folks that were Patreon supporters or just fans or viewers in general. And it was very humbling. It's much as I know with your show, that there are a lot of people that are appreciative of the work that we do, advocating for UAP transparency. And yeah, it was great. It was great, for instance, to meet legends such as Dr. Eric Davis. And I can't even imagine, or I can't even recall everybody that I met. It was so much, so many good folks there. Of course, my friends from the UAP Disclosure Fund were there. Lester Nair, who recently joined UAP Disclosure Fund, Jordan Flowers, and of course Yuan Feng, and of course Colonel Carl Nell was there speaking with Gary Nolan on stage. But it was really great. I got to spend some one-on-one time with Gary Nolan, Dr. Gary Nolan, and that is always a pleasure. I also got a chance to spend quite a bit of time with the kind of world famous astronomer Beatriz Villarreal. She gave an absolutely brilliant talk, and I'm blanking on the name, but the guy he was one of the heads at Lockheed Skunk Works. So really nice gentleman. My name recalls sometimes.
Was it Eric something is ringing up maybe?
Yeah. It was Eric. And again, unless I have it on a teleprompter or on a sheet of paper, I'm really bad about names. But listening to him speak, one of the things that I really found fascinating, there were two things, and I'll start with the Lockheed Martin thing was folks like him and others, including some, and again, I'm so well prepared for this interview in terms of the Seoul names, but there was a lot of discussion on the business opportunities of reverse engineering of metamaterial for UAP. One message that was clear is that venture capitalists are taking notice that this is just around the corner, and they are preparing for it. And really kind of the one big takeaway from Seoul is there was no discussion about whether this is real or maybe it's real. It was all from the place of, this is real. We are talking about something that is from a non-human intelligence. There was zero doubt. Dr. Eric Davis, for instance, and of course, Dr. Eric Davis holds TSSCI clearance, as many of the other speakers at Seoul, unequivocally said that we have captured crashed craft of non-human origin. There is zero doubt that these vehicles are from non-human origin, and that we do have a reverse engineering, crash recovery and reverse engineering program. Carl Nell, again, built on what he spoke about, Colonel Carl Nell's, built upon what he spoke about last year in terms of the need for UAP legislation, the need for, in his view, eminent domain to make sure that a UAP advisory board placed within the White House needs to have access to materials, to crashed UAP materials that are currently in possession of our defense aerospace industry. And I think really kind of the big takeaway was that there was zero doubt that this is going on. But the other thing I would say about Seoul is this year it was held at a different venue. It was much larger. The amenities were greater. So really my hat is off to Dr. Peter Skafish and Dr. Gary Nolan and Dr. Nolan's assistant. They really just knocked it out of the park in terms of the quality of the conference, the speakers. It was a hit all the way around.
Wonderful. Yeah, it looks, from what I could see online, it did look like there was some real heavy hitters there, and it looked like a wonderful event. And there's so much to unpack there on what you just said. And I'd like to start with Dr. Eric Davis, because we don't see or hear from him very often at all. You know, we see the odd Facebook post that someone has, screenshotted and then posted around social media. But do we know really to what level his involvement has been, whether he's first-hand witness to this material or this information? Because, it's very easy for people to say that it's real and everything, and that's great. But, when we can find out a little bit more about where they're getting the information from. So do you think he is first-hand?
I do think he is a first-hand witness. I think that he has worked with this material and likely worked in or around these craft. I honestly do not remember if he said that. There was so much that he said, I was just absolutely blown away. It was way, way more than I think he has ever said. But really the best thing is to wait for the Seoul videos to come out. I know in speaking to some folks that were working on it, Jan Weatherby and some others, they're really trying to push to get this out in a very short period of time. Last year, which I did assist a bit with the Seoul videos, they didn't come out until the following year. But this year, the way they shot it was in a different way that will allow them to get these out much quicker. But yeah, Dr. Davis, he was very, very open, as much as he could be without violating his national security non-disclosure agreement. For me, there were some serious bombshells there, and there were a few questions that were asked of him, and he specifically said, that particular question I discussed in a skiff, and therefore I'm not going to discuss it here, or something along those lines. But when you listen to this guy, there is zero doubt. This guy knows what he's talking about, and it's not hearsay. It's not second or third hand, repeating of people he's spoken with. You definitely got the impression that this guy is totally a first-hand witness. I would say with a great deal of confidence.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to those videos coming out because I think, like you said, last year, I think they had some technical issues which kept delaying the release, and so I think people are going to be waiting eagerly to see what's been said this year. So yeah, really excited for that. But absolutely, let's just stick with Seoul finally, and Colonel Carl Nell you mentioned there. You know, last year he gave this presentation which almost gave a bit of a roadmap for, I think, and we heard for the first time, controlled disclosure, something that, you know, there's this plan to, I think the year 2030 was mentioned. Does it seem like with his latest presentation that was still kind of his viewpoint, maybe, that we need to do this in a step-by-step process rather than just dumping it all out? Where were the differences from last year's presentation?
In terms of differences from last year, I mean, I think that really overall there were really pretty similar similar points that he was coming from. I would say in this discussion that he really just dug into the details quite a bit more than he did last year, and it was more of a sort of organic conversation. Actually, if I remember right, Colonel Nell got up, made his presentation, had a slide deck, versus this was a one-on-one back and forth discussion between Colonel Nell and Dr. Gary Nolan. But yes, I absolutely would say, and I'm not speaking for Colonel Nell, whom I have a great deal of respect for. He is definitely of the mind that this needs to come out in a very specific way, in a controlled way, so that you can mitigate as best you can the downstream consequences, the unforeseen second and third order consequences of all of this being popped out to the public. Colonel Nell has spoken that part one concern that could occur as far as a catastrophic disclosure would be for China or Russia to disclose first. And it absolutely would be catastrophic, especially for the geopolitical standing of the United States of America. Therefore, it is in the United States' best interest to take the lead, do the right thing, show true leadership in the world. And I think once they do that, your country and others that are close allies will follow suit and do the right thing. I would guess that the UK and our other Five Eyes partners are waiting for the United States to go first. And the other thing that I would say about this, and I know that a lot of lawmakers on Capitol Hill are certainly paying attention to this topic, but I would also message to the staffers of former presidents of the United States, President Bush Jr., President Obama, President Clinton, and President Carter, who unfortunately I don't think will be around much longer. But the thing to keep in mind is that when this goes, and I have a high degree of confidence that President Trump will probably act on this, the thing that I would hope these former presidents will think about is their legacy. And if they were to speak out about this subject and say, I can't tell you due to classification exactly what I know, but at a top level, say I'm President Obama, I'm telling the American public, we are not alone. There are things here from other places that are of a non-human intelligence, and the world needs to know this, because I think that when President Trump does do this, and I am confident he will, and I could be wrong. This is this is more on a hunch, but a lot of folks will go back and ask these former presidents, what did you know? When did you know it? And why didn't you tell the American people? Those will be fair questions. So if President Trump gets in front of the camera and spills the beans, he will rightfully be able to say, as much as I'm honestly not a fan of President Trump politically, but he will rightfully be able to say to about these former presidents, they kept it from you. And if I were a former president, I would certainly be thinking about my legacy regarding the UAP topic, and I would say step up to the plate, do the right thing, and do this either beforehand or in conjunction with what President Trump might say. It's the right thing for the country, it's the right thing for the world, and it's the right thing for their presidential legacies.
Indeed it is. That's correct. Yep. Couldn't agree more. Now let's talk about the legacy programs, these alleged reverse engineering and legacy programs. And, you know, we've always heard these ties to the private industry, to the aerospace companies. But, you know, there's always new information coming out through great investigative work by people like yourself and Chris Sharp. And the CIA keep getting brought up. And in particular, recently, I think it was the Directorate of Science and Technology and the Directorate of Operations. So where do we think these links are now between whether it resides under these government agencies or are they working alongside these aerospace industries? Like, what's the latest with the kind of direction that we're kind of digging down to find out where these things reside?
Well, it's a complicated issue, of course, because we are all getting this information from multiple sources. And, and I think it was really almost a year ago, I think towards the end of the month, that myself, Christopher Sharp, and Josh Boswell wrote an article for the Daily Mail detailing the CIA's Directorate of Science and Technologies division called the Office of Global Access that was involved in the crash recovery, the crash recovery operations of crashed UAPs, UFOs. DS&T, it is well out. It's been an open source at the Directorate of Science and Technology, CIA Directorate of Science and Technology, that the Office of Global Access was under that directorate. That was one of the methods that we were able to confirm this, is we actually found on the internet references to the Office of Global Access and it being run by a guy by the name of Douglas Wolf, and that it was under the Directorate of Science and Technology. So Christopher Sharp in the Liberation Times, whom of course we are a big fan of here on the Good Trouble Show, I think it was at the beginning of November, published a very extensive article laying out further detail of how all of this ran, a detail that I wasn't aware of until I read that article. But it all adds up. One of the things that we wrote in the article was that around half of these crash recovery operations that are generated out of the CIA DS&T, half of them go to JSOC, OGA for picking up Office of Global Access, Joint Special Operations Command, and then the other half are given straight to private defense contractors, such as allegedly Lockheed Martin, allegedly Northrop Grumman, and allegedly Aerospace Corporation. I'm sure Boeing and a whole host of others that are allegedly part of picking these things up. Half of that are sort of government says, hey, go pick this up. It belongs to us, but we want you to pick it up, see what you could do with it. And they have possession of it. I would say that I can't imagine that it is an adversarial relationship between our government and these defense contractors. These defense contractors are critical for the national security of the United States and obviously provide support and weapon systems to your country and others, friends of the United States, part of the Five Eyes partnership. So so I'm sure these contractors are doing the patriotic thing, and the government is saying, hey, see what you can figure out, see what technology can be gleaned off of them. But from everything that we have heard through multiple sources, that there is a close relationship between the government, as you would expect, and these defense contractors.
Yeah, I can believe it 100%. Now, we obviously recently had two hearings. We had the House Oversight and Accountability hearing chaired by Nancy Mace, and then more recently we had the Senate sort of AARO, with John Kozlowski, chaired by Senator Gillibrand, which, I was honored to be a guest on your show for that live alongside yourself and Sean Cahill. And I'll urge anybody listening or watching this to go and check that out. I will link that in the description. So we don't need to touch upon that too much, but it is AARO's job to be finding this information out. And all we've heard from them since day one is that they found absolutely no evidence of any kind of legacy or crash retrieval program, especially under the leadership of Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. And what I do want to touch upon is your statement to the U.S. House Committee of Oversight and Accountability that was entered into the congressional record as an add-on to Lou Elizondo's testimony. Can you tell us about what you wrote, why you wrote it, and how it fit into everything that was said at that hearing?
Absolutely. And actually, I'm dropping an episode today speaking about this. So I'm going to elaborate on this. One of the core missions of the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office in the Pentagon, besides investigating UAP and figuring out what the possible military implications are in terms of the threat to national security, they are also supposed to be the authorized recipient of classified testimony provided by former or current government workers who hold a clearance or signed a national security non-disclosure agreement and are still bound by that NDA. They are supposed to be the legal recipient of testimony from these folks. And what I mean by these folks is specifically people that have had visibility into waived, unacknowledged special access programs or intelligence controlled access programs, people that have firsthand knowledge about these programs that have been illegally held from Congress. Now, part of the way the law was written is that these folks are supposed to be able to go into AARO, provide a classified testimony if they are disclosing classified information. They're supposed to be able to provide this testimony in a secure setting in a SCIF, and AARO is authorized to be the recipient of that classified information, regardless of whether they have been given a read-in or approval or put on the bigot list for that special access program or controlled access program. Now, we know that there is a very long history of the Pentagon illegally retaliating against our American veterans, our men and women that have worn the uniform, our men and women that have served either our country as either part of a three-letter agency or working for a defense contractor, these folks that hold TS clearance and above that have been exposed to these special access programs. We know that when these folks have come forward, there is a history of the Pentagon retaliating against them, either through flagging their clearance or physical threats of violence or harassment, such as obvious surveillance, technical surveillance, things of that nature. This has been going on for a very long time. This is the culture that the Pentagon and the intelligence community have fostered for literally decades. One thing that I've spoken about is whistleblowers that go in and file a PPD-19, a protected disclosure to the DoD Inspector General. There is a history of the Pentagon Inspector General actually leaking the names and information of these whistleblowers. And of course, what happens is these folks, the antibodies, weaponize this information. And so these folks have these whistleblowers, they have to be concerned about their careers. For instance, if their security clearances are flagged, they filed a PPD 19 with the IG. Well, it may take a year to a year and a half for the inspector general to even get to their case and adjudicate it. So in the meantime, the Pentagon, through leaks, has caught wind of the identities of these individuals. They go and they flag their clearances, and then all of a sudden, these folks are out of a job. If they have retired from active duty or work in the Pentagon, and they're working for a contractor, they can no longer work for a company or work on a project that requires a security clearance to work on a SAP or a CAP. So these folks are dead in the water. It absolutely really kind of keeps them from putting food on the table. So circling back to AARO, AARO is supposed to be the recipient of this information, legally the recipient of this information. Now, about a year ago, I revealed on the Good Trouble Show that Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, the director of AARO at the time, had two different advisory groups, one that was on the books and one that was off the books. And apparently members of Congress went to Dr. Kirkpatrick and said, hey, we want to know who is on this off the books technical advisory group. And Dr. Kirkpatrick reportedly refused to tell Congress or their staffers who was on this list. Well, we had recently multiple sources tell us that one of the members on this advisory group is the former director of the CIA Directorate of Science and Technology, a lot of directorates there, or more accurately, the former head of the CIA Directorate of Science and Technology, whom is, if you tease it all out and you look at, what we reported last year in the Daily Mail, is clearly a gatekeeper for the UAP topic. And what we reported is multiple sources told us that Glenn Gaffney, former CIA employee Glenn Gaffney, is or was one of the members of the AARO off the books advisory group. So why is that important? It is important because if you have the director of AARO, former director Sean Kirkpatrick, or really whoever in AARO, is the recipient of classified UAP special access program or controlled access program testimony, and these whistleblowers, their identities are supposed to be kept secret. The testimony provided to AARO is not supposed to go outside of AARO. It is simply supposed to be used in the framework of their investigation. Well, if you've got the guy that is allegedly one of the main gatekeepers as the head of Directorate of Science and Technology on your board, it's clearly a conflict of interest. What that says to me is information that could have been shared with members of that advisory board. They certainly could have back-channeled that information back into the intelligence community, back into the stakeholders, back into the legacy program itself, and back to these contractors. So this letter that I submitted to Congress basically said, this is what multiple sources are telling us. These are legitimate sources. And Congress, you guys need to check it out. You need to bring these folks in, put them under oath. I would suggest subject them to lie detector tests, because we know that people that are read into to SAPs and CAPs are often told that if they are asked about these SAPs or CAPs, they are supposed to lie about it, even under oath. So these folks need to be brought in. Congress needs to bring them in and ask them, hey, these are the allegations that this one journalist made through multiple sources that this individual has. We want to know if these allegations are true or not. I would love nothing better than to be proven wrong, that none of this is true. But these are serious allegations, and they need to be looked into. because, really at the end of the day, if you have one of the main gatekeepers of the Deep Legacy UAP program, and when I say that, I don't mean by a particular individual, although the only name we were given was Glenn Gaffney. He's moved on, so I'm sure whoever's in that position now is still sitting on that board. And from what we understand, as of a few weeks ago, that board was still up and running, still operational. It calls into question whether whistleblowers are really safe going and testifying to AARO, because there clearly is some kind of back channel, or at least there appears to be some kind of back channel that exists between AARO leadership and the stakeholders of the UAP legacy program.
I mean, that's absolutely shocking, but unfortunately, I can believe it.
One thing I would like to point out, you brought this up earlier, where talking about AARO's ability to go and investigate these allegations of hidden special access programs and controlled access programs. Both Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick and the current director of AARO, Dr. John Kozlowski, have publicly stated that they have all the legal authority they need to go and effectively look into these allegations. They have the legal authority to go and open the doors on these special access programs and controlled access programs. And I am here to tell you that they are not being honest with Congress or the American people. They do not have unfettered access. Specifically, AARO, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, does not hold what is called 1811, Federal Statute 1811, or Special Agent Authority. What I mean by that, Special Agent Authority, or 1811 authority, allows a organization, a federal organization, it gives them subpoena power. It gives them power to arrest. It gives them all of the legal powers that any regular investigatory agency has that are needed. So FBI, any of these folks, they all have 1811 authority. They have the tools, the mechanisms to conduct a proper investigation. They have the tools to go and demand from a Lockheed Martin or whatever defense contractor. They have the legal authority to subpoena and to say, you have to show us what is behind the door. AARO lacks that authority. Period. The end. So when AARO leadership says they have all the authority they need, they have all the legal access, all the legal tools needed to uncover these special access programs, that is not fact. They do not have it. So essentially, AARO is like a paper tiger. They claim they have this teeth, but in reality, they do not. And the other thing you have to stop and think about is if you have the leadership of AARO, such as Tim Phillips, former director Sean Kirkpatrick, these are all Title 50 guys. These are all intelligence guys. So, one of the things that we revealed in that Daily Mail article is that the CIA is one of the primary stakeholders in all of this. So I find it hard to believe that AARO leadership, which is essentially out of the intelligence community under OUSDINS. So when you have Dr. Kirkpatrick, former director of AARO, or Dr. John Kozlowski saying, these folks are telling us there are no special access programs when we go and knock on the door, it's really hard to believe that a program manager of a special access or controlled access program regarding the UAP is going to say, yeah, you know what? You caught us red-handed. We have this special access program we've been hiding for Congress, but gee, Dr. Kirkpatrick, or gee, Dr. Kozlowski, you caught us red-handed. So hey, you know what? We're going to open the door. Here are the goodies that we have. My message to members of Congress is, don't buy it. They don't have the legal authority, they do not have the full investigatory power that they need, which is 1811 authority. AARO was not delegated that authority. And so they do not have the investigative power to gain access to these special access programs. So what does that mean? The gatekeepers, the program managers for these SAPs and CAPs, they know that. They know that AARO does not have the legal teeth to view those programs. So therefore, they're going to say, we don't have anything. And AARO's going to say, okay, thanks. And they're going to move on to the next thing. That is, it's sad, but that is, AARO's a paper tiger. And if Congress wants to empower them, they need to give them 1811 authority. Congress needs to remove AARO out from underneath the Department of Defense, because let's face it, you cannot trust a Department of Defense program to investigate its parents for illegal activity. It's not going to work. So really the thing Congress should do is move AARO or dissolve AARO altogether, create their own investigatory body with 1811 authority within the Senate or within the House, and Congress is the one that takes it over, because as we know, you cannot trust the Pentagon. The Pentagon will lie to Congress. The CIA will lie to Congress. There is a long history of this, and to expect anything different from these folks, it's just a wish.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been proven time and time again. So I definitely I hear you there. Now, as part of the your trip to the House hearing, there was an event following that put on by the UAP Disclosure Fund featuring Senator Rounds, I believe. Now, could you tell us, first of all, just briefly, if for anybody that may not be fully aware, what the UAP Disclosure Fund is, what are its main core goals and its purpose, and then what that sort of after event was all about?
Absolutely. So the UAP Disclosure Fund is a 501c4. We are a nonprofit, nonpartisan entity. And I want to point out that my work on the Good Trouble Show is completely separate as Director of Strategy for the UAP Disclosure Fund. You know, we're kind of like Ghostbusters. We don't cross the streams. So anything that I say on the Good Trouble Show is purely the opinion of the Good Trouble Show. I am not speaking on behalf of UAP Disclosure Fund. So what is UAP Disclosure Fund? We are the premier organization advocating for UAP transparency in Washington. So what are the things that we are working on? We advocate for enhanced whistleblower protection. We advocate for further legislation that reestablishes the proper oversight of the legislative branch on the executive branch, over the executive branch regarding the UAP issue. We are advocating for all of those things. We are also providing material support to members of Congress who are wanting more information about what historically has been going on with the UAP issue, what the history is, and as far as what we are aware of sort of what has occurred in the past as far as why Congress has been kept in the dark. So I say that we are the premier organization. The members on our board of directors, we have former defense official Lou Elizondo. We have Colonel Carl Nell. We have Yuan Feng, our executive director, and we have Dr. Gary Nolan. On our advisory board, we have a former Deputy Assistant Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence, Christopher Mellon, someone that I brought on, senior Senate staffer Kirk McConnell, who has been very involved in the UAP topic. Kirk McConnell, I would point out, has been the recipient of classified testimony from people that were firsthand witnesses UAP special access and controlled access programs. He was not receiving classified testimony from second and third hand witnesses. He was the recipient as the senior Senate staffer for the Senate Armed Services Committee. Kirk McConnell received multiple classified testimony from first-hand people that were involved in the UAP issue. So we have at UAP Disclosure Fund, we have all of the right people. One of the things that UAP Disclosure Fund can also tout is members of our board of directors hold TSSCI clearance. So one of the things as UAP Disclosure Fund, some of our board members are able to go and hold a classified briefing with a senator or congressman or congresswoman if they are an approved recipient of that classified information. So UAP Disclosure Fund is uniquely positioned to really be an effective tool in bringing UAP transparency and disclosure forward. You mentioned the Senate reception. So part of the reason that we were there was we sponsored a reception at one of the Senate office buildings, and we had as our keynote speaker Senator Mike Rounds, who I would say is fully aware of what is going on. I would encourage everyone to go to the UAPDF Twitter accounts or X or UAPDisclosureFund.org, and you can view the speech by Senator Mike Rounds where he says UAP are real. UAP are a national security issue, and it is going to take a very long time to unravel this in such a way that does not jeopardize national security. But the reception was fantastic. It was well attended by a lot of Senate staffers. I had the pleasure of speaking with members of Congress who know they full well know that the Pentagon is lying through their teeth about this. They know it stinks to high heaven. They know that this is a national security issue. They do not believe, I would say, much of what the Pentagon Public Affairs Office says, nor do they, I would say, with great confidence, believe anything that AARO tells them. They know that they are being really fed a whole thing of bullshit, and they're done with it. They are done with the obfuscation. They know that constitutionally they should be read into this. There is no good legal reason that they should be kept out of it. And actually, when I say no good legal reason, the way that it has been kept from them is that this is classified under the National Security Council, and then a bunch of it is classified in the Department of Energy as transclassified foreign nuclear information. Both of those classification designators, Congress does not have the legal authority to view those classified products. So, for instance, NSC, the United States Nuclear War Plan, I think it's called OP Plan 8088, that sits within the NSC. Congress does not have the legal authority to view the U.S. Nuclear War Plan. Things that are classified under the DOE, under transclassified foreign nuclear information. Congress does not have the ability to view those classified products. So these are the mechanisms, the legal mechanisms that have been used to keep this hidden from lawmakers. Lawmakers know this. Lawmakers know that there needs to be some sort of reconciliation, legal reconciliation that corrects this oversight issue. But so the whole thing was great. We also at UAPDF held quite a few private meetings with lawmakers on Capitol Hill, and again, this was all prior to the hearing. This was also prior to the reception, and I can tell you, members of Congress are wildly interested in knowing what is going on. They all know that that the Pentagon is not being straight with them. These members of Congress, they know that this has got to be fixed, and they know that they're being handed just a BS sandwich from the Department of Defense and the intelligence community when it comes to the UAP issue, and they know that they need to get to the bottom of this, and UAP Disclosure Fund is there to make that happen.
Do you think this will all still keep rolling forward with its foot on the gas, even with things like the Schumer amendment being left out of the manager's package and the Senate NDAA? Do you still think there is good momentum going into 2025 and beyond?
So what I would say is the Biden administration had zero interest in dealing with this issue in a public way. Our sources had indicated well over a year ago that President Biden had not been briefed on the UAP issue. Now this had all been prior to the whole balloon incident, but I have not heard one way or another whether Vice President Harris was ever briefed in. But what we had heard from multiple sources was back prior to the balloon stuff, balloon gate or whatever you want to call it, that the NSC, in particular, the National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, they had all made the decision not to tell President Biden about it out of concern for his mental health. And he had a lot on his plate with Ukraine and the conflict, with, in the Middle East. So there essentially was either, I don't know if it was a directive or an unsaid directive of, we don't want to touch this topic. So with that said, and I'm super hard on Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. I don't think he has been truthful with the American public, and in my opinion, continues to spread disinformation about all of this. And actually, Admiral Tim Gallaudet, I can never say his last name, at Seoul specifically spoke about former AARO director Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick specifically lying about what Admiral Gallaudet had to say. But essentially, kind of, if there is no, if you're the executive branch and the executive branch, the White House, the NSC says, we're not touching the UAP topic publicly, then that's going to go down the chain. So, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, who is, in essence, is the executive branch, is not going to go, or AARO is not going to go against the grain if the directive from the NSC is we're not ready to talk about this UAP issue. Now, I am hopeful. I would say that the testimony from Dr. John Kozlowski, the new AARO director, I think was a significant turning point compared to what Dr. Kirkpatrick had said. Kozlowski said UAP are real. He said that there were, multiple incidents that they, in their view, were prosaic, but there were also multiple incidents, and he actually provided great detail as to these incidents that were truly anomalous, and that was really kind of a big change for to hear that out of the director of AARO. Now, I would say he is either new to the job, and maybe doesn't know the guardrails. I think that's probably the least plausible explanation in terms of his being more transparent about it, or he knows that he doesn't have to worry about the Biden administration. So if he essentially goes rogue and says stuff he maybe shouldn't have, I think that he has confidence that the Trump administration will actually have his back. So since the Biden administration is a lame duck administration, maybe he's coming from the place of knowing, I'm going to have a new boss. And the Trump administration, from everything that we are hearing, is keenly interested in taking this subject head on, and therefore something's going to move on it. Now, regarding the legislation, my personal opinion is I am not confident that the UAP Disclosure Act will make it into the NDAA. I know that there was talk of airdropping it, but with the current political climate, with the Democrats in charge of the Senate, and having a Democratic administration that has no influence on the chair of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, Mike Turner, there's really kind of no, I would say, sort of political will to get that thing passed. Now, my hope for the Trump administration is that either new legislation is introduced in 2025, and we know that the Republicans have the House and they have the Senate, that new legislation is written. Maybe it's the same legislation, or maybe it's kind of adjusted a little bit further. But President Trump, and we know that guy, like love him or hate him, leads with an iron fist. He says to members of Congress, "You guys pass this." And I certainly hope the Trump administration does that. It would be the right thing for the Trump administration to do. I cannot think of an example of I used to make, I'm a Democrat, and I used to make fun of Trump and his deep state stuff, but at least when it comes to the UAP issue, it turns out to be true. So there is no better demonstration for President Trump to talk about the deep state than this whole thing, this group of 50-ish or so senior executive service level members and elected officials that have formed this, that have been part of this ongoing cabal for decades. It is high time for the executive branch to a president to come in and say, you know what, enough is enough. President Trump could declassify this. All he needs to do is the stuff that is classed under the NSC, the National Security Council. They are the classification authority. All President Trump needs to do, or incoming President Trump, is he simply needs to write an executive order declassifying whatever elements he deems are suitable that do not jeopardize national security. He needs to go and he can write an EO and declassify the stuff that is classed under the NSC. He can do it unilaterally. He doesn't need anyone's approval. He has the power to do it. Now, what he does not have the power, nor does any president have the power, he cannot unilaterally declassify the stuff in the DOE that is classified under transclassified foreign nuclear information. So I'm guessing, I don't know what sits in there, what's in that bucket, but it is probably stuff dealing with propulsion or the crash recoveries. I'm not sure what exactly is in there. But as far as the stuff in DOE, it's a panel that has to vote to declassify it. The president does weigh in on it. He's a voting member, but it's essentially designed so that a president can't go and just decide to declassify a nuclear weapon design. That's the reason it has a panel. But President Trump, on day one, as soon as he is sworn back in, he has the power to issue an executive order to declassify any UAP, UFO related TSSCI information that is classified under the NSC. He has the legal authority to do it. And I would encourage President Trump or his staffers that are watching your show to do it. It is the right thing for the country. It is the right thing for your administration. It will right decades of wrongs that our government has done. But more importantly, it is the right thing for the world. There, as I've said time and again, there are certainly elements of this that should remain classified. None of us want to damage the national security of the United States. None of us want any laws broken. All of us want to do the right thing for our country. So, but there is a large amount of this that can be told to the public. Lou Elizondo has spoken about this as well as David Grush and others, that can be told to the public that does not jeopardize the national security of the United States nor any of our allies. So my message to the Trump administration, I would encourage you to have the Senate write new legislation if indeed the UAP Disclosure Act does not happen. I would invite the Trump administration to message to Senate leadership, write new legislation. Let's get it passed. Doesn't need to go into the NDAA. Get it passed as federal law. President Trump should issue an EO declassifying stuff that's the stuff that is classified under the National Security Council, and let's move forward. It's time for reconciliation amongst everyone. The sooner you do it, the more the American people are going to be forgiving of the transgressions of the past of the American government, and all of us, United Kingdom, all of our allies, and really for the world. It is high time that we do this.
Indeed. And it's clear there's a lot of work to do on every level with regards to the UAP transparency. The one thing I do know is that you and I, our friends, colleagues and associates, will continue to do what we can to help this. And let's hope that the Senate and Congress continue to keep their foot on the gas. And for everything you do, Matt, I want to thank you for joining me today. I want to thank you. I always enjoy your insights and I really appreciate it.
Vinny, thank you so much for having me. I love coming on your show. You're doing excellent work. I've been a supporter of your show for quite some time. I would encourage anyone that is watching this show for the very first time to subscribe to Vinny's show on YouTube and follow him on X. This guy is an OG. He's been Vinny does the hard work. He talks, he walks the walk, and it's people like yourself that are producing quality content that informs the public on an issue that all of us have the right to understand our true place in the universe. It is our human right.
It is. It really is. And I really appreciate those kind words. So thank you.
You're very welcome.
And to everyone watching, listening, whether it's now or in the future, thank you so much for the ongoing support. And make sure you go to all of the links in the description of this video to support Matt and his work at The Good Trouble Show.